Okay, welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting for 1 p.m. Monday, May 3rd, 2021. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just kind of go back to grade school and Boy Scouts and, just doing the pledge, which is really, really an honor to be able to just take a moment and do that. So just a moment for me. Thank you. At this time, this is our Monday afternoon meeting, so we're just going to jump right into action items. Item number 1, consideration of assessment and tax grant application and adoption of resolution in support. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Commissioners. For the record, Scott Langton, Deschutes County Assessor, and this is the annual application we make with the Oregon Department of Revenue for what they call CAFA A&T grant funds. And it's based on the percentage of A&T that we budget compared to all the other counties. So all 36 counties submit it. There's a pool of money at the state level that's then reallocated out to the counties. Those funds are made up of solely of a portion of delinquent property tax interest that's collected here locally and a $10 recording fee that's put on a number of transactions that go through the clerk's office collected locally. So there's about 20 to 22 million collected statewide. The state keeps 10% of that. They use that for basically for the valuation of real large, complex industrial properties, such as Bend Research here, and then the utility properties like Verizon, the railroads, that type of stuff, and then some oversight. So they are locally collected funds that are then equalized and spread back out. So you have donor counties and recipient counties. We actually collect a little more typically than what we get back, but it's all based on the budgeted dollars for assessment and tax. So, I don't know if you guys had specific questions. That's a real high overview of that.
And we use the funds for core operations, core A&T operations, or are there specific projects that we're using them for?
No, it's based on just percentage that's budgeted for A&T. So you look, and A&T is made up of more than just, it's primarily assessors, a big chunk. You got tax, board of property tax appeals, and then a little bit of GIS that's directly attributable to that. These funds are just a direct disbursement to the county general fund. So they're just, however you want to use them, but they're based on the percentage of what we budget.
I know last year we had a discussion about, if we needed to, and we were attempting to contract a little bit early in COVID times, and this is really a formula that defines kind of the minimum staffing for the number of parcels we have here, number of tax accounts. And it would have been a cause and effect if we would have gone under a number. Just a point that we were talking about last year.
Yeah, there are some. It's direct relationship to how much is budgeted. So we budget more, we're going to get more CAFA dollars. We budget less, we get less. If we fall below a standard level that the Department of Revenue feels that we can adequately maintain this function, they do have the statutory authority to then not give us any of those dollars. So we could lose all those dollars as well. That has never been exercised as far as I know, and there's some counties that have been in pretty bad shape where they try to work with the counties and the assessor and the commissioners of that county to try to maintain some level of adequacy.
And so you said that the amount of money that we send over is greater than the amount of money that we get back. Is the difference that 10% that
no
keeps, or is it even more than that?
I don't have those numbers. I could get them. what it was is there was, and this goes back a number of years, where there was Lane and Lincoln County were kind of the poster children for underfunding, and they were having serious negative impacts on the assessment and taxation function. Well, you've got K through 12 where, they get a chunk through property taxes and a chunk through the general fund with the equalization. Well, if some counties not imposing the taxes they need to, they're skewing that, so there's less dollars in there and less statewide, and a number of other negative impacts on that. So they created this program to try to equalize that, but then you've got counties like Multnomah County. They collect far more in the delinquent interest and recording than they get back through this. But then you have like a Curry County, which doesn't have a lot of activity. They get more monies back than they collect at a local level. And we used to get more back than we gave, and then we tipped that a number of years ago. And I could get those numbers exactly, but it's not a huge amount. But at least last we checked, we were still a donor county.
So kind of a business question maybe for Dave Lynn Legal. The Section 1, second sentence talks about if 100% of the expenditures is not appropriated or the county is out of compliance with the laws referred in the recitals, no grant shall be made to the county for the quarter in which the county is out of compliance. I mean, it's more of an acknowledgement to what the state might do instead of what the county might do, is the way it reads to me.
Yeah, I don't believe we drafted this. This was state boilerplate.
Yeah, this is pretty boilerplate. And what it is they don't want counties, and Deschutes wasn't one of them, but a number of years ago there was a county that would put in additional FTE into the assessment budget and then not allow them to be filled. And they did that just so they could increase the amount of these revenues. And really what you're doing is you're competing against the other counties when you do that.
Well, so yeah, maybe it's just a statement back to the boilerplate design of it. I mean, so it sounds like we're acknowledging that if it's 100% isn't appropriated or the county is out of compliance, it's not, it's kind of backwards to the logic of who would make that. We're not going to make that choice to not give ourselves money in a quarter. The state might, though, so. Not a problem, though. I mean, if this is the accepted language.
It's appropriating it.
Yeah.
Right.
If this is the accepted language around the state, that's fine. So, is there a motion?
So I move that we approve the assessment and taxation grant application and adoption of resolution number 2021-022.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes.
Quick question for you. Since the deadline is today to get this in, and that's my fault as far as that, I'm not sure what the proper protocol, but if I could get your signatures on this so I could get it submitted, that would be fantastic.
Is it right here?
That's it right there. It's in a red folder. In a blue pen. So, yeah, there you go. That was, you'll get it right here. You can have it as you're leaving the room. And I will acknowledge, so Commissioner Dare is not with us today, just pre-informed absence. So we did start the meeting. I didn't mention that as we got started, but I was notified that she wasn't going to be joining us today.
So you got two.
I promise I'll make sure Sharon gets this.
I bet you will.
Yeah, 'cause I don't want to get on her bad.
Yeah.
Get that scan.
They'll track you down if you don't.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Item number 2, consideration of request to convert psychiatric nurse practitioner position to psychiatrist. A little bit of a tongue twister. Welcome.
Yeah, just a little bit. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Janice Garceau here, Director of Behavioral Health. This is a request to convert an existing nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner vacancy to a 0.5 psychiatrist position. To cover the cost, we are using resources made available by the reduction of an existing 1.0 FTE psychiatrist to a 0.8 And then the difference remaining is about $8,000, which we can cover with vacancy savings or CCBHC revenue. It's nominal. This will allow us to hire a half-time child psychiatrist for our main clinic, which has been absent a child psychiatrist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner, child-focused for that matter, for quite some time. So that is the request.
It looks like it's really just the choice of how do we make something happen, with these open positions and the need out there. What's the industry going to be able to provide and what's a good fit? So thanks for getting proactive and making some of these choices.
And I would ask if this nurse practitioner position has been vacant for a while, and you mentioned that this is a highly valuable specialty, which is often difficult to fill. Do you feel like do you have a greater confidence that you're going to be able to fill the position if you offer it as a psychiatrist as opposed to a psychiatric nurse practitioner, or do you still anticipate challenges finding someone who is interested in a 0.5 FTE position?
Well, the reality is, Commissioner, right now we have 2 candidates that are psychiatrists. And so that is in part motivating us to ensure we have adequate psychiatry FTE to fill. We have to be pretty flexible with these because, as you're indicating, they're very difficult to fill, either the nurse practitioner role or the psychiatry role. We just happen to be very fortunate to have 2 very good candidates, one of whom is a child psychiatrist and has some interest. So right now, having this vacancy will be helpful for us.
Right.
So I noticed Dr. Berry's on the agenda item 2. Is he maybe available or want to say anything? Just making sure. So Will Berry, if he's out on a Zoom call.
I don't know if he
Just
was
making sure.
admitted. Okay. Yeah. I think he was planning to join at 1:15. He didn't anticipate you guys being ahead of schedule.
We're just about 2 minutes ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, so if we make this conversion now, and a couple years down the line, there's someone, the 0.5 FTE psychiatrist, wants to stop doing that, and there is a 0.5, a psychiatric nurse practitioner who's interested. Does making this conversion preclude us from being able to, offer the position to a psychiatric nurse practitioner later, or is there a way to structure it so it could be, you do a position announcement and you say we would love to have either or is a nurse, as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, not ideal for this position, and we really need a psychiatrist?
So to answer both questions, first, we prefer a psychiatrist when we are able to recruit them. They have historically been harder to recruit, but and this is we have some amazing nurse practitioners who do really wonderful work, but when we can find psychiatrists who are interested in and dedicated to community mental health, we really want to be working with them. And their level of training and skill and expertise just adds a layer of knowledge and support to clinicians that we think is really important. To answer your second question, in practice, it is much easier to change an FTE to a less costly one. It doesn't typically require a board action. When we're converting an FTE to a more costly FTE, we really have to come before this board and ask permission. So should we down the road have a vacancy again in this position and have nurse practitioners applying in droves, which would be a wonderful experience, we would be able to relatively easily convert the position back to a nurse practitioner. It's harder to convert to a psychiatrist.
Got it.
So that's the reason it's before the board, and Will has joined us.
Well, and I'll also acknowledge that, this is an annual budget process that happens at the county. The health department, as I say, my observation is it's constant change, and this is what we do. But managing change is a skill and an art in itself, and we just need to know how to do it without letting it overwhelm us.
That is the understatement of the year.
Well, I mean, that's it, though. That's the reality.
It's true. This
Yeah.
has been a year where managing change is an art and a skill for just about the entire
Yep.
community. But certainly we're used to it.
Thank you for managing that change in your realm, Janice.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions for Dr. Berry?
We're basically got started about 5 minutes ago, Dr. Berry, and we were wondering if you were going to be able to join us, so thank you very much for joining us. Janice has done a great job defining. We had some discussion back and forth a little bit about kind of the nuts and bolts and the finances of it, but if you can, fill us into the value of, these services in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, and I appreciate my boss covering for me. She hit the broad nail on the head. I mean, I would say that our nurse practitioners, our nursing staff has done a really great job. We have traditionally had a balance between child psychiatrists and nurse practitioners. And the great thing about child psychiatrists is they do have some additional training, a longer training, but also some training specific, particularly around some medical and neurologic complications that can be pretty challenging and pretty high risk. And that would be part of this role too. So there's some specific gaps in our community. Two major examples would be children and young adults with more severe intellectual developmental disabilities or neurologic conditions, many of which may have been there since birth, who can present particular challenges with managing behavior or their mental health, but also coordinating those changes with some neurologic or medical needs that can be pretty high need. And then another specific area would be around young people with eating disorders, where again, a high level of coordination with the medical side of the case, monitoring their medical safety if they're underweight, dealing with the hormonal and other possible serious side effects of malnutrition. There's just a high level of medical expertise there where having a physician who's a child psychiatrist is particularly useful. And those clients of ours, when they're not able to get those specialty services, often end up in the emergency room over and over again and use a tremendous amount of resources across a range of services. So we've been hoping for a long time, at least as long as I've been here, to try to bring in more specialty help around that. Our current child psychiatrist manages already some of our very high-risk clients with our wraparound team and what's called our YAT, or our Young Adult in Transition team. But this would be an opportunity to get some more of that specialty child psychiatry care for some of those medical, neurologically complex kids and young adults over at our Courtney Clinic. So it would be a tremendous asset. And I think, as Janice has already explained, it works out really nicely since we are having the other changes, a little bit of a reduction in our other child psychiatrist FTE, where budgetarily we're that close to being there anyway, just with the FTE vacancies on the child side. So I'm really excited about the opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great explanation. After hearing about all of the amazing things that this position could do, I'm concerned that we've had this vacancy for so long, and I'm really glad that we are going to we have good candidates, and we can consider this proposal to convert this position so that we can provide a higher level of service, or higher volume of service, or both.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner.
So at this time, we're looking for just support for a Wednesday consent agenda, is that correct? Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm supportive at this time.
Great. So I'll move that we approve.
So this will be just showing support today for Wednesday's
Okay. Yeah.
consent.
Got it.
Just acknowledging support at this time.
Acknowledging support.
So there you go. Okay. So we will have it on the agenda on Wednesday or I don't know if it's this Wednesday, but it's coming around for the FTE changes itself.
On the consent agenda in the morning?
So, yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Item number 3 is consideration of acceptance of a grant from Quality Improvement Funds for childhood immunization data. We've got Nahad down
Hello,
here, but
Commissioners.
yep, there we
Yeah,
go.
Nahad is at a school meeting. I don't know if it's school board or one of those. So I'm presenting. I'm Jill Johnson. I'm a supervisor in health services for communicable disease programs, including the immunization program. And we have been offered a little bit more than $20,000 by the Central Oregon Health Council to work on immunization data quality improvement for childhood immunizations. And you can see, I'm glad that the data is up here, that our numbers are actually really pretty much in line with the state. However, the 2020 data
So we're not
is not
seeing
out yet.
We're not seeing a share of a desktop, if
Oh.
that's what you're intending.
Oh,
But you're coming through
I wonder-
clear.
Oh, let's see. Okay. Well, anyway, the 76% is where our immunizations in Oregon lie, and about 75% in Deschutes County. So we're actually doing okay, but the most recent data is the 2019 data. So we won't have 2020 till June. And we know that some parents have been delaying well child visits and medical appointments during the pandemic, and so there's likely quite a few children that are due or past due for vaccines. So the point of this grant would be to hire a temporary data quality specialist to work with clinics to clean up their data, so inactivate patients that are no longer being seen at those clinics, and then deduplicate records so that we're starting with a really good set of data. And then from there, we would be identifying children that are due or past due for vaccines and scheduling them into their home clinics for a catch-up vaccine appointment. So this would start in July and likely go for 3 or 4 months. And we are just asking for your approval to accept the funds.
Great, and I see Rita was with us also. Would this be a project under her? Is that where it's going to be happening?
That is correct.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So it looks like Central Oregon Health Council has defined, was this an ask by us to get this data organized, or was it kind of from the other way around where the Health Council saw this need? I guess that'd be my one question.
Yeah, it was the other way around. This is work that we would be embarking on soon anyway, but this just helps speed up the start date. Typically, our immunization coordinator works on this kind of work from 2016 to 2019. You may remember the AFIX project. A CDC program for improving immunization rates. And it was a very successful project, increasing 2-year-old rates by more than 8%. And this was really the first step in that project to really clean up our data and then go from there. So it seems like the right time. We're a ways into the pandemic to really focus some time and resources on this work again.
Understood, okay.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear about this project. I have fears that with the politicization of vaccination that has come with COVID, that the need for more individualized outreach is going to be just even more needed after the pandemic is over. The other night, I went to pick up some takeout food at a restaurant, and had a long discussion with some of the lead staff there, and they. I wasn't proselytizing to them or anything, but we talked about how the restaurant was empty, or the indoor was empty, and they asked about, well, do we really have that much COVID in the community right now? And he said, yeah, we have the highest number of cases that we've had for the whole pandemic right now, and And then we talked a little bit about, why that was, and and how, COVID was basically raging through the unvaccinated population. And the person revealed to me that they were one of the vaccine hesitant, and they had been fed some information that essentially getting vaccinated would sterilize them as a young adult. And I don't know where this information comes from, but the fact that again, that vaccination has been so politicized during this pandemic, and there's going to be a lot of misinformation to counteract when it's over. I definitely see tremendous value in work like this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So yeah, a motion for this one.
I move that the county accepts the Central Oregon Health Council Regional Childhood Immunization Data Quality Improvement Fund grant.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Item number 4, consideration of approval to accept certified local government grant award. So Tanya.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Tanya Saltzman, Senior Planner. I'm here briefly to request board approval to accept a Certified Local Government, aka CLG grant, and this covers historic preservation activities in the county and as well as the City of Sisters. You might recall I came before you to ask for permission to apply for this grant in February, so we just heard about the award last week. Originally, they had said we were going to get $10,000, and then they said, oh, you might get a little more, you might get 11.5, and then we got 12,000, which is great. And I think that was basically because it's a non-competitive grant, and I think they had fewer applicants than originally anticipated. So we're very excited to have that extra money, which will also be matched in kind by staff time on our end. I attached a copy of the grant agreement that explains, some of the tasks that we've included in the grant. The City of Sisters has taken a really active role this year, which we're very excited about, and they'll be working on a story map, which is the latest online tool that a lot of people have been using to explain some of their historic resources, as well as other public education things. On our side, on the county side, we'll be working on a policies and procedures manual for the Historic Landmarks Commission, as well as a strategic plan. And then sprinkle in some miscellaneous items as well, which, always pop up in that period of time. So the grant period concludes on August 31st, 2022. So we have a little bit of time to work on fun stuff. And so I'm just here to answer any questions and request approval to accept that award.
So Tanya, as I was reading through this board packet item, I was trying to visualize what kinds of cultural or historic resources would benefit from these preservation efforts. And buildings or archaeological sites. I couldn't That was one thing that I couldn't kind of pick up from the narrative here. Is just kind of like what kind of historic resources are we talking about?
Well, we have a number of historic resources, and they're actually outlined in our comprehensive plan as Goal 5 resources. As you may recall, Goal 5 covers kind of a little bit of everything from wildlife to historic resources and other stuff. So there's a whole list in the comprehensive plan, which I can share with you. Sometimes, most of the time, it's buildings. Sometimes there's for instance, I was just communicating with a woman who was looking for information on a Grange Hall building, and I forget exactly where that was, but things like that. Sometimes there's bridges. It can run the gamut, really. There's a decent amount, and I should know this, but probably upwards of 20 to 30 resources, I believe, maybe even 40 listed in our comp plan. So specifically, this grant won't be you can also use this grant to apply for specific, like working on restoration, specific hands-on stuff for individual sites. We're not actually proposing that in this case. It's more kind of general public outreach and information to say, for instance, in Sisters, they did what's called a reconnaissance level survey. So that's like a kind of our first pass of historic resources. And they'll do this story map that'll say, you know, hey, there's this building and let's tell you all about the history of it. And that kind of first level of pass before they really drill down into the super detailed things. You know, they use this kind of nail or, you know, but just to gather momentum and interest from the community. Often this kind of stuff is addressed in actual events, kind of hands-on walking tours and things like that. But in the interest of, you know, the situation that we're in, we're kind of focusing a little bit more on online resources. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, Commissioner.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I was just trying to get a picture in my head because otherwise, you know, a story map and a reconnaissance level survey, or, you know, they don't conjure up the building or the bridge that that we're talking about. So thank you.
But I'm sure it evolves a little bit over time, who's involved, what the topic of the day is. Want to always thank the Historic Landmarks Commission for the community members involved in this process. Just having that little bit of brain space around, you know, what is culturally significant, what is historical, and, you know, how are we affecting it with the current developments and activities. So,
yeah.
Great.
I move that we approve the, I move that we approve acceptance of the Certified Local Government Grant Award for historic preservation activities.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I'll just quickly add that because of the grant amount, our Community Development Director, Nick Lelak, has the authority to sign that. So we're all good on that sense.
Well, and you mentioned this
Thank you.
is the fun stuff. So this can be the fun stuff also.
Yeah, the historic preservation, there's a lot of fun stuff. I mean, there's a lot of really engaged individuals in the community, and there's some really interesting history out there that we hope to share more as time goes on. So
Thank you.
thank you.
We're doing real well today. So item number 5, Community Development Annual Report and Draft Work Plan. Nick Lelak, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Commissioners. Community Development Director Nick Lelak. I'm pleased to present our draft work plan to you, our draft annual report and work plan to you today. I am joined by, and you'll see them on the screen, Randy Scheid, our building official, Todd Cleveland, our environmental soils supervisor, and Peter Gutowski, our planning manager. I'm not sure if Chris Gracia will join us, our assistant building official, or not, and it's okay if he's not. He may very well be in the field. I am sorry to say that Angie Havner, our coordinated services manager, is not able to join us today, and neither is Sherry Pinner, our senior management analyst. Both are unfortunately out of the office due to privacy issues. I won't state those on the public record, but it's unfortunate. Otherwise, they would be a part of this presentation. There's just incredibly important members of our community development department management team, and they would have important information to share. In their absence, I will cover some of the materials that they were to discuss as well. The purposes of this work session are to prepare for your public hearing on the draft work plan, which is scheduled for next Wednesday, May 12th, and to provide a summary of some of the accomplishments from this past year, just a snapshot, and a couple of the work plan items in the proposed document. And as I mentioned, I will cover the topics for Sherry and Angie in their absence today. Randy will discuss building, Todd, the environmental soils, and Peter in planning. I'd like to just point anybody that may be watching online to see a draft copy of the annual report and work plan. It is in the board's meeting packet that is available online. It's also available on our Community Development Department website at www.deschutes.org/CD. It's at the bottom of the document in a PDF. And if anybody has any problems whatsoever, please contact us and we'll provide a copy to you so that you can review the document yourself. And we certainly look forward to public input on the work plan. And we are working right now with Whitney Hale, our communications director, on a press release to announce next week's public hearing. I've already reached out to everybody that participated in the Planning Commission meeting so that they're able to participate in that meeting. And I've also shared with them that you have a copy of their comments already, and we'll make sure that's in your packet next week. I'm not going to steal any of Peter's thunder. He'll talk about the planning division, but I will just say we've received more public comments and input this year than we ever have, which has just been extraordinary. It makes such an important difference in the work plan every year. Certainly, Commissioner Chair DeBone knows over the last decade that the public input has a real meaningful impact on the work plan every year, and it will this year as well. There's a lot of information in the work plan for those that have not seen it before, a lot of information about our department. We include the Board of County Commissions, annual goals and objectives. It summarizes our department's fiscal and some of the operational challenges, who we report to, the population estimates that we have each year, our performance management program that we're very proud of, and a community involvement report. So there's a lot of information in there. We're not going to discuss most of that today. We're just going to provide some high-level overviews. The purpose of the report, which we believe is very important, is to provide a report on our achievements last calendar year, 2020, and then the work plan is for the next fiscal year, 2021, 2022. And then it provides a lot of other purposes in the work plan. Each spring, we prepare the work plan, and we prepare the work plan based on the Board of County Commission's goals and objectives, carryover projects from prior years, changes in state law, which seem to change every year, at least a little bit, grants and funding sources, and as I mentioned, public comments. The work plan also serves as the context in which, as new issues emerge or arise and the board changes priorities, we can evaluate when and where and how we initiate those projects with all the other work that we're working on. So providing a big picture from last year, gosh, the discussion that you just had a few moments ago, we could almost have the subtitle of Managing Change or the Artists of Change, or it's all been about almost constant change. And again, another understatement of the years, it was a year like no other. It was really extraordinary. You know, it started in 2019 as in early 2020 as just a continuation from 2019 with sustained high levels of business volumes. Very strong levels of permitting, a robust long-range work plan, and sustained staffing levels. Then, as we know what happened in March with everything beginning to shut down, we began to then change our projections for the year ahead, up to 50% in declining permitting activities. We just didn't know. At the same time, we had some people, a few people that left our department, retirees, or they accepted positions elsewhere, so we left those positions vacant. By midsummer, we were back to pre-pandemic levels. Unfortunately, it took us until the fall to begin to catch up to those levels because we hadn't filled those positions. But thanks to the Board of Commissioners, we then filled those positions, and as we continued. So by the end of the year, we were nearly fully staffed at sustained permitting levels. What we're not going to cover in this work plan discussion, but we'll discuss in the budget in a few weeks, is kind of what happened after that. The next chapter in the story from January until March is all of a sudden the switch flipped. And we went from sustained high levels and what we thought were solid staffing levels to a whole new trajectory and level of business activity than what we've seen in 15 or more years, if ever. And we weren't the only ones. Other counties and cities across the state experienced similar significant increases. So going back to last year, we experienced, as everybody did, several significant cycles of opening and closing, most staff working remotely most of the times. We had our satellite offices closed, along with at least the City of Sisters was closed during most of the pandemic. And what we did is we then invested a lot of resources into improving our online e-permitting, electronic permitting, and a lot of our services online, which were really, really terrific. We created how-to videos that we posted on our website and on YouTube, and much thanks to Whitney Hale for helping coordinate that effort. And we've received a lot of positive feedback from that. Our employees, as we know, experienced a lot of change throughout the year. And it wasn't just with where and how they were working. As we know, it was their own childcare and how are they managing their own lives. So during all of that, I feel so proud in saying and we continue to hear that we've really provided extraordinary levels of service. And that took really the dedication of our team to continuously adapt and adjust to that change that we've talked about already. A couple of additional highlights. One of the things I think was so important that we did continue to address last year was our preparedness for future disasters. And we did so in coordination with other county departments, which is so important. Mostly with our emergency management team, maintaining and keeping up to date our continuity of operations plan, coordinating with the Sheriff's Department, of course, with our emergency management team, our pre-disaster preparedness planning. It had to hit the pause during the pandemic. We'll get back to that. And the natural hazards mitigation plan update. But as we experienced with the fires in the fall, and we know the threat is only going to increase in the future, that work is going to continue to be extremely important for our department and the county as a whole to complete. The other just highlight from last year is code compliance. Finally, our number of violations and complaints finally leveled off after years of just extraordinary increases. It did level off at a very high level. And finally, by October, we were fully staffed, really for the first time, and we have been since, which is making such a big difference. I just want to highlight a couple of the work plan, of the draft projects in the work plan for our administrative services, coordinated services, and code compliance, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of our team to summarize each of their divisions. With administrative services, and I think just continuing the theme of change, is we're going to be transitioning to a new post-pandemic operations, both internally with our satellite offices and with a larger staff. This is going to be a work in progress, and of course, we don't know exactly what this is going to look like for the county as a whole, with our department, with our satellite operations, et cetera. That's going to be a big one. Continuing to participate in the pre-disaster preparedness efforts, and another one is to coordinate with human resources, our human resources department, and they've been such a valuable partner already in evaluating, proposing, and really implementing strategies to attract and retain the staff to meet our increasing service demands. In both a highly competitive market in Central Oregon and what can we do, employees are so valuable as it is, that as we go forward and we see the housing price appreciation and lack of housing, gosh, it's going to be harder and harder to attract staff. So what can we do collaboratively with our human resources department to keep the great people we have and to attract more people going forward? Very, very important. Coordinated services, part of their goal this year is just training so many new staff to become proficient as quickly as possible, especially with the increasing business volumes and as we reopen our satellite offices in Sisters and La Pine. And the business activity in those two cities is just extraordinary, and our satellite offices will be very important. The final point I'll make is just with code compliance. We're going to talk again, we'll meet with the board on Wednesday to talk about the policy and procedures manual update, but one of the biggest priorities is going to be to complete that manual update and any corresponding changes to county code. We're exploring enforcing the county's noxious weed program. We've been coordinating very closely with Ed Keith and Boone on that potential transfer, just as their capacity is so limited, dealing with so many other important issues in the county, and we may be able to enforce that in the community development department as we do the nuisance ordinance and others. And continuing to automating processes for other compliance related issues. So commissioners, with that, I will conclude my remarks, and if I may turn it over to Randy Scheid to provide a snapshot of some of the accomplishments and work plan projects for the building division. Thank you.
Mute.
Excuse me. Thank you, Nick. For the record, Randy Scheid, Deschutes County building official. This year, just like from the last half of last year, has just been an exceptional year. We are experiencing incredible growth in a time of incredible change right now. And I am as happy as can be with the staff of dedicated professionals we have on this team who are mainly dispatching from home, and yet our efficiencies have continued to increase through this pandemic. We've reduced our windshield time because we don't have people coming from great distances to come here and get their work and then go back out. I get more actual inspection hours out of these people. We have less carbon footprint associated with our program because of this. And thank you for the full-time employees that additional employees were budgeted. We have found some excellent candidates, and we have 3 new people starting 6/1. One is a replacement for a retired inspector, and the other 2 are the 2 new FTEs I have. We will be fully staffed, but as you know, there's still quite a ramp-up time to get these inspectors fully certified and in the field. And with the potential ADU bills going forward, we're looking good for the future with the staff we have now with the current model. We're finishing some bigger projects, a couple swimming pools in Sun River. We have, I'm looking through my list, I'm sorry. We have some La Pine fire departments are doing some additions to allow for more sleeping rooms for firefighters. So we have firefighters closer to their apparatus to assist our citizens. So that's an exciting job we have going now. We have a Bend Distillery production facility going in that we've been pretty actively engaged in. It continues to be, though, our single-family dwellings that are just off the charts, that are driving our business. And that's because of the new norm of the Zoom economy, where people can live where they want to live and still be employed, in other areas. That's all I have is that we're busy, and I thank you for the additional staff that you provided us.
Well, and Nick mentioned it and you mentioned it. I mean, it's good that we have open positions, but it's even better that we can find somebody to come in and join our team. So we want to hopefully keep that culture, make sure this is a welcoming place to work. It's a great, Central Oregon market is probably exciting for anybody, but really finding that next person to join us is always, maybe tricky at this point in time.
Thank you, Commissioners. And if I may transition to Todd Cleveland, our Environmental Soils Supervisor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Todd Cleveland, Environmental Soils. We do the on-site wastewater program, and just to stick with a theme, probably one of the biggest accomplishments. My team, I got to commend my team, the resiliency. We pretty much went to remote work. They have performed at a very high level, provided great service to the community. There really wasn't any decrease in that service level. We've been able to achieve all of our performance measures with turnaround times, permitting, site evaluations, and the workloads have continued to increase, and recently they've just gone skyrocketing. So we continue to work on South County issues. We have the pollution reduction credit nitrogen rebate program. We provided 8 rebates last year. I'm seeing a little bit of an increase in demand for that. The good news there is that with some of the development in the new neighborhood in La Pine, we're seeing some of the money come into the Groundwater Protection Fund, which, hopefully we can continue to do that. I assisted with parametrics with the Terrebonne sewer feasibility, some of the technical information regarding on-site wastewater systems in Terrebonne, some of the concerns about commercial on-site wastewater systems, starting to struggle in Terrebonne. I didn't realize how much demand that we've been dealing with in the rural area for commercial development. I recognized that recently talking to a counterpart in another county, how much we're getting inquiries on commercial development. and really, usually we do residential systems. Let's see what else. Oh, and the other thing is the South County issue is there's been over 30 variances that the Oregon DEQ has approved, and I continue to participate on those variance hearings, providing feedback, working on solutions with DEQ staff. That's an ongoing concern. So moving forward, we had the discussion at the end of last year regarding some of the South County groundwater conditions. What are the well conditions? What are the drinking water, the water quality conditions down there? And so one of the goals, for our work plan would be to create a plan for a sampling plan with DEQ, create a plan on how we're going to sample groundwater wells, some of the monitoring wells, things like that, continue providing financial assistance opportunities for people. And again, the big issue with us is hopefully maintaining staffing. We've been fortunate to be able to hire a replacement for Larry Howard, who recently retired. He retired Friday. We have a full registered environmental health specialist with good experience, Paige Reinhardt Inez from Crook County. We hired her, and she's just stepped right in. So hopefully we won't see any hiccups there, but we're so busy. I really do have concerns about how sustainable that's going to be. Let's hope we can keep up with it, with the growth that's currently going on. So those are the big issues that we're dealing with in Environmental Soils Division.
Thank
You have any
very
questions?
much. Go ahead. I was going to say, acknowledging groundwater protection, that's the big picture item, southern Deschutes County, highly draining volcanic soils and a high water table. So just the basics. And then the pollution reduction credit, my thought there is, let's, and I've always leaned into this, let's make sure it's known, it's available, that we're not, putting any resistance between the ask and the approval. Even if there's that, my thought right now, even if there's that point in time where there's more requests than dollars in the bank, maybe we start to preload that because there's a new neighborhood future out there also, which will be a chunk of dollars at some point. So, there's some good discussions in there. But thanks for what you're doing and, putting in those green boxes. I see them going down the highway.
I was going to just mention that there are these American Rescue Plan dollars coming to Deschutes County in the near future, and one of the eligible uses for those funds was water and wastewater infrastructure. And so, as the primary intention behind those American Rescue Plan dollars is, to help us, respond to COVID, to help us replace revenue that was lost because of the pandemic, things like that. But there's also kind of there's a desire to help communities come out of the pandemic stronger and more prepared than they were prior to the pandemic. And I don't know, Todd, I heard you talk about kind of staffing, potential staffing constraints. It seems like there's a lot of encouragement not to think about using these dollars for people because, when the American Rescue Plan dollars are gone, then if you've hired some people, then you're going to be in a difficult place with trying to figure out whether you can keep those people or not. But there are opportunities to spend these dollars on infrastructure. And to help our community come out of the pandemic stronger than they were before. So I'm wondering if you see any opportunities, either helping people on an individual parcel by parcel scale with their wastewater systems, or with moving people to more long-term sustainable solutions. Where a targeted investment in the next couple of years could get us to a new place.
Absolutely. I mean, so the state has I just received last week comment period for state revolving fund loan funds from the state DEQ that perhaps could be utilized by community organizations to finance some of these solutions. There's neighbor impact that we've provided funding to that can help. So if some of these funds were available to provide low interest loans or grants, funds, assistance, some sort of things, much like we do with the rebate program, those could help people when they're in a pinch, right? They've had employment issues. It's been a struggle all year with COVID, and people being home a lot. One of the things that we've noticed is that I've seen an uptick in major failures of systems. I think some of that has to do with a lot more people are at home all day long, and it's stressing out systems. And so of those people, sometimes they need some financial assistance to, they need financing to be able to repair their septic systems. There are other possibilities where we could look at public water systems, for example, that would help communities as well.
Please, Nick.
And commissioners, and Todd, I'm curious if you think there might be an opportunity to provide any support to any Terrebonne wastewater solutions that would be a great potential partnership with the road department and the Terrebonne community.
I think that could be something to look into for sure.
Well, I for one would love to see some concepts kind of inserted into the consideration process. We'll be talking about how the county is going to be allocating these American Rescue Plan dollars in the very near future. So things like those public water system investments or capitalizing a low interest loan program, whatever in your expert opinions, after having worked in this realm for a long time, you think might actually do some long-term good and get us to a better place than we were before. I'd be excited to hear about.
Okay.
One of the things you learn is there's a couple neighborhoods. We were talking about a Goal 11 exception years ago, kind of a Southern Deschutes County blanket wide. It's really a choice of the residents if they want to have a system. Terrebonne may be different, so it is kind of a footprint of an urban unincorporated community. But a rural neighborhood, there's no city council, there's no other really coordinated entity, and we are the Board of Commissioners for the land use, but it's kind of a disconnect if we would start thinking of when we put sewer in your area or when we put water in your area, because we're really not set up like that. It's more like the ask would need to come from the neighborhood or the neighborhood homeowners association or a group of citizens. So I'm just saying there's kind of a natural.
Yeah, but if they knew that there was actually money on the table, and it wasn't all coming out of their pockets to build something, it might, that might actually incentivize some people to think about.
Yeah, I'm just acknowledging that it's.
Yeah.
Not really and that's kind of the counterintuitive thing. It's not really top down. The money would be the incentive, because I've been to the community neighborhood association meetings, summertime picnics and barbecues, talking to people when they have their neighborhood association meetings, and it's a partnership. But it's not like the board is the city council required to do water and sewer. It's just a different governing setup.
Yeah, but and I don't know the fine scale detail in that area, but I would also wonder whether there was opportunities for the community that's just off the end of the current sewer system, like within stone throw distance to hook up if they were interested in doing that. So
you'd have to talk to your friends not your friends, I'm sorry, 1,000 Friends or Central Oregon Land Watch, because that's a no-no. You don't touch outside of a UGB or a well-defined area. Expanding some of these systems that's direct land use conflict. So yeah, I'm just saying it's interesting when you get down to it.
Well, that also might affect some people's consideration of whether they wanted to be in the incorporated city or not. It's like, I wouldn't mind being in the incorporated city and having sewer, but if if to get in there, I got to pay a bunch of money to get hooked up, then I'm not going to be very interested in that.
And I'm just pointing out, these are the things that go back and forth.
Absolutely.
Interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
Commissioners, if we may then transition to Peter Gutowski. He'll summarize he'll summarize the planning division. The long-range planning division is often one of the most robust aspects of the public hearing as well as the work plan. And he will also summarize the Planning Commission's recommendations. They had extensive deliberations, over 2 hours, a lot of interest in the work plan and in the future of the division, the department, and the work in the rural county. So if I may turn it over to Peter Gutowski, I will do so.
Well, and also I'll acknowledge as you get started, Peter, that a lot of great community input, emails on the back of the packet here, just very specific advocacy and input from quite a few groups and community members.
Great. Thank you, Nick, for the introduction, and good afternoon, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So I want to just take a moment to highlight a couple of 2020 accomplishments. It was a year ago, literally, when the Community Development Department was coordinating with Sharon Keith and Whitney Hale. Sharon's our executive administrative assistant, and Whitney Hale, our communications director, to navigate how we were going to go to electronic meetings. And thanks to the coordination with the two of them and just working it out and setting up a system, I'm very pleased to share with you, as we're doing this very afternoon, in how the Community Development Department has executed virtual meetings since really May, with our Planning Commission, Historic Landmarks Commission, and our hearings officer. All three of those proceedings went virtual starting really in the spring and to date, essentially. And it's been relatively seamless in our ability to conduct regular meetings and resolve land use matters that had a matter of first impression or were just overly complex that required a hearings officer proceeding. Just last week, we had a community open house hosted by the Planning Commission to receive input on new wildlife inventories, and we received hundreds of survey responses. And again, I think it's a testament to our entire organization in our embrace of this new technology. It's not lost on, I think, any of us that when post-pandemic, that the ability to use these resources to generate public input, both in person and remotely, will contribute to community engagement. So I just want to extend my appreciation to administrative staff and to our entire department for coming up with a policy and procedures manual and executing what at the time was pretty overwhelming. What was Zoom? How does it work? What are the mechanics? So anyway, the second accomplishment that really echoes your entire meeting today, listening to the health department and whatnot, just about dealing with robust growth and activity. I want to recognize those members of our staff that are in development review, the counter coverage, the emails, the phone calls. In 2020, once we basically caught our breath and settled down into the pandemic, as Nick pointed out, really starting in June, it was just extensive interest and activity in our department as it pertains to land use planning. Really, the statistics that we took starting in March, we received over 2,000 emails and 3,400 phone calls. So over that 10-month period, you just drop a zero. We were, 240 emails a month, 300 phone calls a month. And certainly in 2021, echoing what has been a constant theme, those numbers just continue to rise. And our staff's ability to manage those case files, respond to genuine inquiries about development. You know, we approved just short of 870 applications in 2020. We're on pace in 2021 to exceed that. But it's just a testament to our staff's knowledge and organization and commitment to ensure that we're providing timely customer service. And I will echo what Randy expressed as well, as the appreciation of the board's support to bring on additional staff, which we're in the process of doing. So development activity continues to be, of course, one of our core duties, and I'm very proud to acknowledge those achievements in the face of rapid change and adjustment. Two more accomplishments very quickly. The board approved a number of legislative amendments in 2020. A couple that I just want to highlight. The board directed staff to initiate amendments to recognize childcare opportunities. So we audited our code, coordinated with legal counsel, and successfully amended our code to make it easier to get a land use entitlement in rural Deschutes County. The board also processed some significant applicant-initiated amendments, two by the Oregon Department of Transportation pertaining to roundabouts on Highway 20, both in the community of Tumalo, as well as near on Highway 20, the old Bend Redmond Highway intersection. Also some improvements that will take place on Highway 97, J-turns, and dealing with access near Vanderbilt Road. And then an amendment that the Sun River initiated for employee housing that was very well vetted through the Planning Commission as well as the Board of County Commissioners. And that was also a successful amendment to allow employee housing when Sun River is ready to occur in the Sun River Business Park. And then lastly, just, you know, the Board of County Commissioners is committed to coordination across jurisdictions and across agencies. And I just wanted to recognize Deschutes County's involvement as a cooperating agency and participating with the Deschutes Basin Habitat and Conservation Plan. And the board did provide, I thought, very timely comments about that habitat conservation plan, and that was something that CDD had an opportunity, or the Planning Division had an opportunity to facilitate. Being mindful of your time, transitioning now to the Planning Commission's recommendation on the work plan. As Nick noted, they had public hearings and deliberation. Mr. Chairman, you noted some of the testimony in your packet. We did see extensive testimony on the opportunity to initiate a dark skies ordinance, as well as testimony that really highlighted the importance of trying to streamline or eliminating some of the regulatory hurdles pertaining to agritourism. Ultimately, the Planning Commission, and it's noted in your memo, highlighted in Table 2, they identified or offered recommendations for addressing what we were calling discretionary projects. And there's 6 that I'll just run through very quickly that I think there were more than 6 noted in Table 2, but in the interest of time, I'll keep it to 6. In terms of what they really prioritized. Initiating the comprehensive plan was one. Exploring broadband infrastructure in our rural county. Implementing rural accessory dwelling units was a priority. I already talked about the testimony pertaining to Deschutes County's outdoor lighting ordinance, but that was another priority that they highlighted. The 5th item was streamlining permitting processes for residential uses in resource zones, and that pertains to the work that came out of the non-prime resource land amendments to focus on those 6 legacy rural residential areas, coming up with some workable templates. And also in the budget, we're proposing a fee reduction for processing template and non-farm dwelling applications in those 6 locations. And then the last thing that they recommended was coordinating with the Board of County Commissioners to establish some strategic direction and values coordinating with the board, some strategic recommendations and values with the Planning Commission. And the way I would describe this is the commission is really interested when it's appropriate with the board to, I think synchronize the broad countywide goals that the board establishes every year and refine and almost evaluate them in relationship to the Community Development Department's work plan, and empowering the Planning Commission as the citizen involvement arm to take those broad goals that are so important to the board relating to safe communities, healthy people, economic vitality, and service delivery, working with the board to take that through a refinement process to see if there's elements in the work plan program that meet those broad goals and that can be taken into, land use public policy measures as it pertains to future work plans. So they very much value your engagement and your direction and welcoming and endorsing the community involvement process. So I'll stop there. I know you have a busy agenda, and I had the pleasure of following my colleagues on a robust draft work plan, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and certainly to our director for any follow-up comments or remarks. So thanks for your time.
So today we're looking at kind of the consolidated package of information in preparation for a public hearing by the Board of Commissioners, because there's definitely some discussion items in there, topics all over the place that could be talked about for days, weeks, and years, in fact. So, I mean, let's talk about that as a board, and maybe, Nick, you can help us through. So would there be value in discussing any of this right now between two of us, or would that be more after? Would that be valuable for the people that are providing public input already, or should we kind of stand by for after that? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
Commissioners, I would suggest you don't need to spend any more time on this today if you don't wish, is that next week you'll gather the public input. Yeah. We've invited additional written submittals. We've invited people to participate in the hearing next week so that you'll receive a lot of information. You may be prepared next week to discuss it then and make a recommend and adopt it, or as is commonly the case, you might want to keep even though it's not a formal land use proceeding, just keeping the public comment period open for another week, and then we would come back, and at that point you would have the discussion of which items to keep or prioritize, and which maybe not to include this next fiscal year. So I would see not a need today to dive into any of these issues, but as staff, we're certainly happy to answer any questions you have.
Please.
I have a kind of foundational structural questions that, and we don't need to talk about the specific projects right now, but I look at these lists and I see things in Table 2 that, I think are really important and I would like to see us work on. But I also saw basically a note that we have capacity constraints. And, if you want to pull things off of Table 2 into the work plan, you might have to drop some things off of Table 1. And which for me begs the question of how is our capacity to do Table 1 or Table 2 items rooted, particularly financially. So I'd like to understand better how we pay for this work. If basically we're saying, well, we take permit application fees and pool those resources, and then we have a certain amount to work with, and we can do a certain amount of these things. I look at these lists and say, there's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't generate permit fees, but which is still extremely important. And if some of these things are high priorities for us to do that don't generate permit fees, and currently we're highly dependent on permit fees to do the work, then I would like us to consider making other funds available from other places. For example, supporting supporting that exploration of agricultural economic development. That's especially if we're talking about things like agritourism. I mean, it does seem to me like it would be appropriate to allocate some transient room tax dollars to that. There's an elegant connection between, a tourism amenity, that will generate, TRT in the future, being paid for with current TRT. Yeah, and then there are things like this community energy plan. I appreciate that my colleagues on the board didn't have a tremendous amount of appetite or interest in that when it came up earlier. But in this particular case, there is a community entity that is initiating this process, and we can either ignore it and let them write the community energy plan that they want to write with no county input, or we can track and engage in that and leave our imprint on what they produce and caution them about things that we're concerned about in the process. So I mean, that item is maybe a little bit different than some of the other items on here, in that it's it's something that's happening out in the community no matter what. And do we want to engage or not? And in my mind, you have to. You have to do those things. So again, it takes me back to this whole, how do we create our capacity to do this work, and how do we determine kind of how big our capacity is, so that I can look at these two lists and and say there's things on table 2 that I want to see happen, but I don't want to lose anything from table 1.
Thank you, Commissioner. And so, Chair DeBonne, if I may reply. So the way we often view the work plan is that it's probably an 18-month work plan, recognizing that we will not be able to complete all of the projects, most likely within a 12-month period. We do have the funding for all of these projects except the comprehensive plan update, and we're requesting supplemental funding in the budget for that project, either from the general fund or from our reserve funds, whatever, but a funding source be given the magnitude of that effort and the consultants that will be needed. But we believe that we do have the capacity to complete these projects in about 18 months, maybe a bit longer. When we create the work plan, there are often the unknowns. For example, with rural accessory dwelling units. That can be a very, very significant community conversation, but a lot of it may also depend on what direction does the board want to go if that law is passed. Do we want to just adopt the law as is, which is one path and relatively straightforward, or as our county often does, we have community conversations, and maybe we're more restrictive than state law to address local issues and local concerns. So, but then there's also, of course, the potential that something happens, as we've discovered in the last couple of sessions, where rural ADUs, they don't go forward. And all of a sudden we have that capacity that we've reserved for these. Or we have an urban growth boundary that we weren't anticipating that now we need to reprioritize. So all of these are really estimates at this point in the process. But as Peter and I carefully evaluate these, and we have extensive discussions with the Planning Commission in particular, we really think about an 18-month or so window. With that said, if the Commission would like to prioritize some that more than others and provide additional resources, then that would either be utilizing temporary staff or potentially consultants, things of that nature, which can be very valuable to us. And we have great partnerships with a lot of consultants. So if we want to complete more projects faster, then additional resources would be needed. Otherwise, it's about 18 months. And Commissioner Chang, as you experienced in January, what you'll see with particularly the Planning Division, is we will visit with the board almost quarterly to give you a snapshot of kind of where we're at with the projects. And then capacity emerges, and then we like to check in with the board of, here are all the projects. We have these remaining on the work plan. Which would you like to see us? Which, for your direction, which should we initiate next? Or has a new priority emerged? And then, of course, some of these are funded by grant sources, such as the Tumalo Community Plan Update, which is, we will begin this summer, the Sisters Rural Trails, and we're always looking for additional funding sources, which can either elevate a project or at least we'll reserve capacity in the future. Regarding the number 8, the support community organizations, scoping a community energy plan that you mentioned, I did coordinate with the Environmental Center, and I did ask what types of resources we might, if the board supports our coordinating and supporting that, what types of resources might be necessary this year. And they didn't think that this year was a big resource allocation. It really could be a year or so from now. So this year would be relatively minimal in terms of coordination and maybe helping them scope that to understand it. But subsequent years, it could be a larger resource allocation. I hope I've answered your questions.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of like more foundational question, which I still don't have a good understanding of, is where do the dollars come from for you to do, for CDD to do this work? Is it pretty much permit application fees?
Yes, there's a long-range administrative fee on building permits.
Okay,
that's the primary funding source.
So if we're interested in seeing some of these things happen that don't necessarily generate permit fees, it might be appropriate to spend other dollars. Okay.
Yeah. There's some good discussions in there for sure. So just a couple thoughts real quick, just to get some clarity for myself. So initiate comprehensive plan update to be published in 2024. Is that the idea?
Thank you.
It's a 2040 plan.
Chair DeBonne, that's a typo that we accidentally carried over. It should be comprehensive plan update 2040.
Oh, yeah, okay, so I knew that date,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah,
So when I saw the 24, I thought that's what it was implying, that it was a published date. Okay, so that's the 2040 plan, yep. And then, so just for conversation and information, so a broadband infrastructure, I see that as kind of the market, the public marketplace, the right-of-way, fiber optic, wireless, now satellite-based. So on one hand, it's very interesting in discussion. On the other hand, is that land use? And it's fine to have the discussion, but what would be an action there? I don't have a feel for it.
Yeah, Chair DeBonne, you're exactly right. The Planning Commission really has a significant interest in this, and I've explained to them a number of times that this really isn't a significant role that not only the Community Development Department, but Deschutes County hasn't traditionally played a role in this effort. And so we suggested, if you're interested in continuing to learn about that we would schedule panels of experts to come and speak with them. And just about the time we had that conversation, I know that you had the great presentation from Joe Sidoni about what's happening.
Yeah,
and I actually shared
move right away from land use even.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it may not be necessarily be a community development department historic activity, but I mean, you look at roads, and the county has historically had a significant role in that infrastructure. So I mean, there's and we're certainly seeing. Well, we are seeing from other counties around the state that there are counties who basically believe that the current political economic setting that broadband infrastructure development takes place in is suboptimal. I mean, and some of these counties, Wasco County, Sherman County, Gillum County, they're stepping into the void to bring their community residents broadband, where basically there's a market failure that is not getting it to these rural portions of their communities. So, I mean,
but that's not land use, is all I was trying to point out. I mean, yes, whatever, all the statements you made are true, but I mean, if we talk about taking a parcel of land and authorizing development on that land, can you have, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, garage, size of the structure, color? That's got nothing to do with how much bandwidth is to your house. I mean, if you can get a fiber optic cable there, you can get as much bandwidth as technically feasible. So I'm just trying to differentiate between that.
Yeah, but I mean, in the label, community development, I would say that label is broader than building activity. So, I mean, the table is set. Whether you want to dine at that table is another question. But I mean, within the structure, I do think that within, existing county departments, you could find the right people and programs to really help accelerate the development of this infrastructure if it was an interest.
Yeah, good discussion. Okay, and then I guess, yeah, just a few other little items I had on here. So the Planning Commission, item number 6 on table 2. I mean, I know we've talked to them, and there's a yearning for more interesting activity. And this is just an observation and, for feedback even. Land use in the state of Oregon is a point of pride. Many years ago, we have a system, and it's been, kind of exercised and matured to a point where there probably isn't that much to talk about. I mean, there's always hot topics, like we talked about non-prime resource land, but it took about, a year and a half to prove that it's a dead end, and you're not going to be able to even ask no matter what you do. But if accessory dwelling units are approved by the state legislature, if there's other structural changes to the system at the state level, then it becomes an interesting conversation. There's very much local feedback and views about what implementing it here looks like. But it's kind of fading away, maybe. The true, exciting, engaging discussions have kind of whittled away over the years. I mean, it's just an observation that I think that's where we're at, because I struggle with that too. These guys, the members of the Planning Commission, thank you so much for your service. But maybe there is less and less to do. It's just an acknowledgement. And then community energy plan, the definition of what that would mean. The whereas is going into that effort. It's kind of the concept of community energy plan. The same conversation maybe you and I were just having about internet. Are we telling somebody to use less energy or use a different kind of energy? Is that the role of government? I mean, I don't even know, the definition of what's in people's minds. I don't have a feel for it. I've already got LED bulbs, so where do we go from here? Do I feel guilty if I'm not using wind and solar? I'm just,
yeah.
I don't know.
I think you perceive efforts like this as like personally targeting people with regulatory action. I see efforts like this as gathering information to identify opportunities.
Which is, so that's it. I mean, those definitions, getting clear on what that means. Because since the beginning of, I guess, electricity, I'm thinking of now, Thomas Edison and General Electric and it was industry creating a more efficient, profitable way to provide energy to the country. And now, what's the definition of we're going to have a committee sit here and figure something out. I don't know what we're figuring out.
I mean, our electrical system, like a lot of some of the inventions involved in the development of our electrical system were private sector. The vast, huge amounts of the energy infrastructure that we have in this country was built by the public sector. I mean, it is so if you're trying to say that
but it was always
energy is not like public sector activity, then I will have to disagree with you.
Oh, no, I'm questioning of the definition of what a community energy plan is. And I mean, I went back and looked at the Hood River Energy Plan, and it's the definition of the kinds of energy coming onto the system. So public infrastructure over the last 100 years is what connections are we going to make and how many kilowatts is it going to transfer, referring to electricity again. It wasn't, I mean, now we're switching gears. You know, instead of the river going this way, we're trying to make the river go that way. And so I'm just trying to understand what that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just saying that if there's people out in our community who are going to develop a community energy plan, you can either put your head in the sand or you can engage with them if you want to see certain kinds of information coming out of that process. They're doing that no matter whether we're participating or not.
Well,
So-
yeah, so for it to be on here, I'd need a lot more definition of what this.
Well, there was a little bit of information in the letter, the testimony in here. And I'm sure that those folks would be delighted to come in and talk to us more if you wanted to do
Well, I'd be
an information item.
Well, yeah, we're having a public hearing. That's what we're setting up for. So, I mean, that's it. This is interesting. This is good stuff. Okay, and I'm just trying to get the conversation going here to understand it better. So this is a preparation for a public hearing and input on the annual report and draft work plan for the next fiscal year. Anything else?
And no, thank you, Commissioners. That's exactly what we aim to achieve today. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that's it for our published agenda. We have other items, and then we have executive session also today. Under other items, I did receive a letter from, or we did, here's a copy of United States Department of Agriculture requesting review of a project for NEPA, and this is regarding the Lone Pine Water District, so Lone Pine Irrigation District. So as I say, I'm just acknowledging that this was direct to, me as the chair, but us as commissioners, and feedback is requested. So there is a community meeting on May 5th, if anybody's interested in this, and it can be signed up on. And there's a website, OregonWatershedPlans.org. This is the first project on their front page, so you can find information about this. So just bringing this because it was an email or a letter received. And I did provide a copy for Sharon already for the record. Is there any other item? Anything else for yourself?
I'll just mention that. First off, on this, I would say I hadn't seen this letter till now, but
I just saw it a couple hours ago.
Yeah,
So I brought it. Yep.
I'm excited to see that the Lone Pine Irrigation District is ready to move forward with their PL 566 projects and is putting out their environmental assessment, which is their regulatory requirement in order for them to be able to access those USDA funds.
Yeah, it talks about 10.9 miles of pressurized buried pipe and decommissioned open canals.
Yep.
All kinds of good stuff.
It's very good stuff. So one thing I'll share is that on Thursday I went out to the City of Bend portion of Hunnell Road to check out the houseless people in temporary encampment out there. And on Thursday is the day when a number of organizations who provide services to that temporary community are out there. Showers, food, trash pickup, water, and a number of other things. And the people who I talked to while I was there expressed keen interest in having a kind of formal, stable, long-term place for homeless people to be, and be it in another kind of a place where people can park their recreational vehicles, or where they can camp, or whether it be like a tiny home village like the Veterans Village or something like that. So I think you saw we got an inquiry about what land does the county own in within the city of Bend and the city of Redmond and in the those near vicinities. And so I would anticipate the person who, James Cook, who made that request to us, it was not one of the people who was out at Hunnell Road on Thursday, but I anticipate from that community of that network of homeless advocates that people are interested in asking the county for to commit land resources to some of the visions that they have for more long-term shelter or transitional housing.
Great. I mean, that's the conversation of the day, obviously.
Yeah. But it's getting very, very concrete. No, that was the big one.
So I guess, going back, I was able to tour the Veterans Village, the Heart of Oregon Corps, J-Bar-J, a couple contractors out there working. They're pouring foundation footings, so they're going to have like 4 corner footings, platform, and then they're tipping up the walls on there, so I was able to see all that. Utilities are basically all stubbed in the ground. Dick Tobiasen, or Ben Hur's Foundation person, was out there and took some photos, so pretty positive opportunity out there right now. And then also at the fairgrounds, I was able to go there Friday afternoon. I think we've hit 100,000 doses. Do we have a confirmation of that? I haven't seen it. And maybe that's Wednesday.
We're to hit that Thursday, so I imagine, but I don't have official confirmation.
So I was there Friday at about 3 o'clock, I think, truly just to stop by because they said it might have been then. Maybe it was 2 o'clock. And we were at 99,375, and they were doing about 250 an hour. So they were getting real close to 100,000 shots at the fairgrounds at the end of the day on Friday. So if it wasn't Friday afternoon, it was Saturday, I'm sure. So that was pretty exciting. And that's just the other stuff I had done since I was here. Okay, well, without anything else, at this time, we will go to an executive session. And this is going to be ORS 1926602. If we can get some help. H for litigation, is that? H for litigation. So we'll switch gears. We are, for clarity, the COVID lockdown